Hey guys, tonight we're going to slip into something a little fermented. The air is thick with sweet grape must, the hills smell like warm leaves, and a soft breeze carries the hum of distant music, half flute, half laughter. You're lying on a patch of sun-dappled grass, somewhere between a vineyard and a dream. The skies are dusty purple, and vines curl around your limbs like sleepy serpents. Your mouth tastes faintly of honey and figs. You sit up, blinking. There's a figure watching you. He's barefoot, draped in a robe that looks stitched from leopard skins and morning fog. He holds a clay cup that seems to refill itself every time he sips. His eyes gleam like someone who's seen too much and laughed about most of it. That, you realize, is Dionysus. And honestly, you're not entirely sure if you've been invited or summoned. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while we're here, let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. I read them all, and it's my favorite part of the day. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You don't know it yet, but this won't be the usual heroic tale of swords and sand. Dionysus doesn't play that way. His myths are tangled, inconsistent, a little sticky with fruit juice. Even the Greeks couldn't quite agree on whether he was a foreign god or a native one, a gentle spirit of intoxication or something older and darker. Tonight begins with him walking through the wilderness. No entourage, no lightning bolts, just barefoot on the dust, with a faint scent of fermentation trailing behind him. That's where you see him first. Not on Olympus, but somewhere far outside the city, where the trees bend a little closer, and the air feels slightly off-script. You try to follow him, and that's when the plants start moving. No, really. Ivy seems to spring up around your ankles. The trees sway as if trying to eavesdrop. The path behind you disappears in vines. You're not sure whether this is divine magic or just bad GPS. This is not a god who appears in marble. He appears in sweat, in soil, in the dregs of the last wine jug. His presence doesn't crash in. It creeps, grows, ferments, and you're suddenly, unmistakably, inside his story. Dionysus is called the Twice-Born, and honestly, that's not even the weirdest part. He's the only Olympian who spends his time among mortals, disguised as one of them, and sometimes as something entirely else. He wears no crown, unless you count the grapevines in his hair. He rides no chariot, unless it's pulled by panthers. Yes, panthers. Historians still argue whether he was originally a Thracian vegetation spirit, an Eastern fertility god imported from Phrygia, or just what happens when Greeks drink too long in the sun. His earliest worship appears not in polished city temples, but on hillsides, in caves, in places where the walls blur and shadows get theatrical. Tonight, though, he's alone. You see him stroll up to a fig tree, pluck a fruit without looking, and smile like it told him a joke. He passes you a sip of something from his cup. It's not wine, at least, not any wine you've tasted. It tastes like time. And just as you start to feel like this might be a chill woodland picnic with the god of happy hour, a snake slithers out of a basket nearby. Not toward you, thankfully. It just curls up beside Dionysus, like a bored house cat. He pets it absent-mindedly. The man radiates comfort and danger in equal measure. He starts humming. The ground joins in. You blink, and suddenly you're somewhere else. You're in a room carved from stone, but there's light like a golden evening pouring from the cracks. A woman screams, a thunderbolt, a smell like scorched honey. And there, lying perfectly still, is Semele, mortal princess, lover of Zeus, and the soon-to-be mother of Dionysus. Yes, we've gone back in time. Dionysus's story doesn't start with his triumph. It begins mid-catastrophe. Semele, poor thing, made the classic mistake of dating Zeus and then asking to see him in his true form. That's like asking your microwave to show you what's inside its soul. He appears as lightning. She combusts, and somehow, in the flaming mess, Zeus manages to pluck the fetus from her charred body and sew it into his own thigh. That's right. Dionysus gestated in Zeus's leg, and you thought your family was weird. You turn back to present-day Dionysus. He's grinning, as if remembering all of it. He pats his thigh, then winks. Birth is complicated, he mutters, handing you another sip. You nod solemnly, because what else do you do when the wine god casually recalls being thigh-born? And then, just as your eyelids start to droop and the forest sounds like it's breathing with you, you hear something in the distance. Laughter, female voices, hooves, a beat on drums made from stretched animal skin. You have no idea what's coming, but Dionysus stands, brushes dust from his robe, and offers you a hand. "Let's keep walking," he says. The path beneath your feet shifts. One moment it's packed earth, the next it's soft and springy like moss. You glance down to see it's now covered in wildflowers you didn't notice growing just moments ago. Dionysus doesn't comment. He just walks ahead, barefoot as ever, like this is all perfectly normal. You try to keep pace, dodging an occasional route that snakes out, as if trying to trip you for fun. You're beginning to understand that time doesn't move the same way in his company. The forest dims and then brightens again, like a flickering candle in a large room. And suddenly you're no longer among trees, but in the echoing halls of Mount Olympus. It's loud, too loud. Thunder booms, a baby cries. Somewhere nearby, someone is cursing in ancient Greek. You peer around a marble pillar and spot Zeus himself pacing furiously. His toga is scorched on the hem. There's ash on his brow and desperation in his eyes. You've arrived just in time to see the birth, or rebirth, of Dionysus. He's sewn up inside Zeus's thigh, like a mythological kangaroo pouch. The god of thunder grimaces, grits his teeth, and with a grunt that shakes the columns, unzips himself, so to speak. And there he is, out tumbles Dionysus, pink and wriggly and somehow already smirking. There's no parade. No golden horn section. The other gods don't even show up. Hera, Zeus's wife, is pointedly not present. She's off somewhere smashing furniture and plotting passive-aggressive revenge. You can already feel she's not going to let this slide. And so the child is hidden, again. Because what's a Greek god without at least 2 sets of parents and 3 names? Zeus hands the baby to Hermes with all the grace of someone trying to sneak out of responsibility. Hide him. Somewhere leafy. Historians still argue whether this whole born from a thigh thing is symbolic of divine rebirth or just the ancient Greeks being weird for weirdness' sake. Either way, you have to respect the flair. Hermes doesn't waste time. One minute you're blinking at a stormy Olympus, the next you're in a jungle so green it practically hisses. Welcome to Mount Nisa. There's no consensus on where Nisa actually is. Some say it's in India, others point to Ethiopia, or even some dreamy fold of the Aegean landscape. Here, it's a jungle of tangled vines, thick fog, and the constant chirping of creatures you're better off not investigating. You're handed off again, this time to a group of women known only as the nymphs, or sometimes the rain nurses. They are graceful, eternally youthful, and definitely not just doing daycare for the gods. They're sworn to raise Dionysus far from Hera's reach. The baby is nestled into a goat's arms, yes, a goat, and the animal bleats as if it's done this before. You're not exactly helpful, but you try. You peel grapes and sing lullabies that don't exist yet. The air smells of crushed herbs and something fermented. The boy grows fast. One minute he's crawling through ivy, the next he's running shirtless through the underbrush, chasing butterflies and laughing like he's had wine for breakfast, which he probably has. Goats bleat nearby, and you notice one is particularly obsessed with the child. Later you'll learn that this goat has a name, Amalthea, and may or may not be the same one who nursed Zeus back in the day. Greek myths have a thing for goat milk and poor childcare regulations. Every few days, someone tries to find Dionysus. Hera sends spies, owls, shadows, a very suspicious shrub. Each time, the nymphs outwit them. You help, once disguising the boy with mud and feathers. He giggles the entire time. And then, one day, the boy isn't just playing with grapes. He's speaking to them. You see vines bend when he walks. The local spring fizzes when he dips a finger in. His laughter makes the trees blossom. This is when you start suspecting that Dionysus doesn't just like wine, he is wine. The fermentation of chaos, the bubbling up of joy and destruction in equal measure, a god who will never wear armor or wield a sword, but who can unravel minds with a sip. One evening, as the sun slouches down behind the trees, you sit with him and ask, "So, what now?" He looks at you with eyes that seem too ancient for someone still skipping stones across the stream. "We travel," he says. And just like that, Mount Lysa dissolves around you. The jungle peels back. The vines retract. You're standing on the deck of a rickety wooden ship, docked in a strange, bright land. You can smell spices, hear foreign tongues. The journey is about to begin. You're not sure where the boy ends and the god begins, but you're definitely going with him. The ship groans as it pushes off from the shore, creaking like an old man settling into a warm bath. You steady yourself on a pile of rope, watching Dionysus lean casually against a mast, already sipping from a clay cup that, suspiciously, no one remembers bringing aboard. He looks far too comfortable for someone leaving the only home he's ever known. You're not entirely sure if he's heading somewhere or being pulled. The sea air is thick with salt and orange blossom. Dolphins leap playfully in the distance, though you're starting to suspect they might be spies. Nothing near Dionysus stays normal for long. The voyage lasts days or maybe weeks. Time blurs. On board, you pass evenings listening to him tell riddles that end in punchlines you don't understand until the next morning. One night, the stars shift shape, aligning to form what appears to be a grape cluster. He points at it and laughs softly. "Everything's connected," he says, and you believe him. Eventually you land somewhere that smells like cinnamon and dust. It's hot, blindingly bright. Palm trees sway like they're trying to nap. You step into the sand and instantly regret not packing lighter clothes. Dionysus doesn't sweat. Of course he doesn't. He's now older, taller, his face sharper. There's a restlessness about him now. The child of the forest has become a traveller. He begins wandering across deserts, into marketplaces, through villages that don't even have names yet. And you go with him, half guide, half tourist, half snack holder. Yes, 3 halves. Nothing is rational anymore. Everywhere he goes, people either fear him, worship him, or mistake him for a wandering lunatic. He teaches locals how to ferment strange fruits. You watch him convince a suspicious warlord to drink something called date wine. A few hours later, the warlord is dancing on a table and offering Dionysus his daughter's hand in marriage, his horse, and something that might be a llama. Historians still argue whether these wanderings were actual geopolitical campaigns, symbolic myth cycles, or ancient Greek attempts to explain the spread of wine cultivation. But you? You remember the look on the face of a Babylonian merchant when his clay wine jar began to hum. Somewhere in Lydia, Dionysus picks up an entourage. They call themselves the Thiassos, a wild band of satyrs, nymphs, maenads, and creatures that might be goats, might be men, and might just be hangovers with legs. You're not sure when they all arrived, but suddenly the forest is full of drum beats and laughter. They follow Dionysus with absolute devotion, occasionally arguing over who gets to carry his thyrsus, a staff topped with a pine cone, wrapped in ivy, and on certain days mysteriously dripping honey. Your job becomes undefined. Sometimes you fetch figs, sometimes you interpret dreams. Once you have to break up a fight between a satyr and a tree, don't ask. Every morning there's a feast, and every evening a song. But it's not always joyful. In one town, Dionysus is denied entry. The locals mock him, call him a foreign trickster. That night, ivy bursts through their temple floors. Their sacred fountains run purple. You see the villagers the next morning, dazed and hungover, with grapevines wrapped around their arms like makeshift apologies. They never mock him again. There's a power rising in him now, like the warmth that sneaks up on you during your third glass of wine. Friendly, inviting, but with something darker lurking underneath. One evening, sitting on a hill beneath a sky blooming with stars, he turns to you. "Do you think I'm real?" You don't answer, because at that moment, you're watching a woman turn into a leopard before your eyes. She stretches, purrs, then vanishes into the dark. You've long since stopped asking questions. Dionysus keeps walking, his bare feet leaving no marks in the sand. His cult grows with him, sprouting like mushrooms after a storm. He doesn't recruit. People just fall into rhythm. They dance until sunrise. They sleep in olive groves. They speak in riddles and wake with berry stains on their skin. And you? You sleep under the stars, with a goat skin for a pillow and dreams full of music. Then one day, somewhere in the mountains of Phrygia, he stops. There's a glade, a clearing filled with laughter and flickering torchlight. You step into it, and suddenly, the air tastes like time and wine and ancient secrets. You've arrived at his first real celebration. It isn't organized. There's no formal program. People just dance, cry, sing. Some tear at their clothes. Others fall asleep mid-revelation. And there in the center, Dionysus sits cross-legged, thyrsus in one hand, a cup in the other, smiling like he's been waiting forever. You join the dance. And when the sun finally rises over the hills, warm and golden like a honey-drizzled fig, you realize something. You're not just watching a myth unfold. You're inside it. You wake up tangled in vines. Not metaphorical ones, actual vines, curling gently around your arms like affectionate snakes. Somewhere nearby, a flute trills a lazy scale, then dissolves into laughter. Your head is full of dreams that don't quite feel like yours. Dionysus is already up, standing on a flat stone, arms raised as if to catch the morning light in his palms. He doesn't say, "Good morning." He just hands you a fig and starts walking again. This is how it goes for a while. You pass through lands where people live in reed houses, worship river spirits, and name their goats. You begin to recognize that Dionysus is more than just wine. He's change, movement, disruption that somehow feels like relief. Everywhere he goes, society is peeled back just a little. You see farmers turn into dancers, warriors weep in public, and a widow compose a drinking song that would make a satyr blush. Still, not everyone welcomes him. You arrive one day in a tidy village, square houses, straight roads, and the kind of people who dust their doorknobs. Dionysus approaches with his usual, slightly drunken grace. The villagers take one look at the ivy crawling behind him and bar the gates. "No cults," someone says. "We're a sober town." You're not sure who they thought they were talking to. That night, you hear drums. Not the cheerful kind, the deep, slow kind that make your chest thump in sympathy. The village wakes to find their wells overflowing with sweet wine. Their olive groves pulse with purple light. Every sheep has wandered away, and someone's chicken now sings hymns in a suspiciously human voice. The villagers come out dazed and sticky. Dionysus smiles, tips his cup, and moves on. Historians still argue whether this part of the myth is metaphor or memory, whether Dionysus was once a real traveling priest-king whose cult spread like wildfire, or whether the Greeks simply needed a god to explain what happens when everyone agrees to drop the rules for a night. Either way, the pattern repeats. And then you arrive in a place where the pattern breaks. It's Thebes. You've heard of it, of course. Grand city, powerful walls, drama with a capital D, Oedipus, Jocasta, tragic irony in bulk. But that's all in the future. Right now, Thebes is run by Pentheus, a man who hates chaos, noise, and anything remotely resembling a conga line. He's heard the rumors of Dionysus turning rivers to wine, of women wandering into the woods and coming back with lion blood under their fingernails, of spontaneous flute solos and identity confusion. So naturally, he bans it all. No worship of Dionysus, he declares. No dancing, no drinking, no ivy. And Dionysus? He shows up in disguise. Because of course he does. He dresses like a priest, or maybe a wanderer, or a rock star. You're not sure what to call the look, but it involves shimmering robes, gold earrings, and the kind of people are curious. The city's women in particular are intrigued. They sneak out to the woods, join the forbidden rites, and come back singing in languages no one remembers teaching them. You and Dionysus take up temporary residence in a surprisingly nice guest house. You have a room with lavender-scented sheets and a clear view of Pentheus's palace. You spend most evenings sipping wine that refills itself and pretending to be very unimpressed. Then Pentheus calls for him. He wants to interrogate this so-called priest, find out who he really is, put an end to the nonsense. You follow Dionysus to the palace. The guards hesitate but let you in. After all, what threat could a man in a dress pose? Inside, Pentheus rants, he mocks, he sneers. Dionysus barely blinks. He suggests quite reasonably that Pentheus go see for himself what these forest women are up to. But to do that, Pentheus will need a disguise, and so you find yourself helping the king into a dress. Yes, really. He's unsure about the sandals, but you assure him they bring out his eyes. Dionysus ties a ribbon in his hair, and you try very hard not to laugh. The king sneaks out, disguised as a Maenad, heading toward the woods where the forbidden rites unfold. You don't follow him. You already know how this story ends. Later that night, the women of Thebes, Pentheus's own mother among them, find a wild beast lurking in the forest. They tear it apart with their bare hands, eyes glazed with divine madness. When they return, drunk on frenzy and too many metaphors, they carry his head on a stick. Pentheus wanted to control the chaos. Instead, he became its latest sacrifice. The city quiets after that. No one bans Dionysus again. As you leave Thebes, Dionysus doesn't look triumphant, just resolved, like someone who knows this won't be the last time someone underestimates him. He turns to you and shrugs. People are funny. You nod, because what else do you say when the god of wine just orchestrated one of the weirdest revenge plots in mythological history? He hands you the thyrsus and says, "Your turn to carry it for a while." You grip the pine-cone-topped staff. It pulses faintly in your hand. The next part of the journey is about to begin. You don't sleep that night. Not really. You lie beneath a fig tree, the thyrsus beside you, humming gently like a cat snoring. The sky above is marbled with stars, but you can't stop thinking about Pentheus. So proud, so certain, so thoroughly torn apart. Dionysus is nowhere to be seen, just laughter in the trees, and a scent in the air, crushed grapes, torch smoke, and something ancient. By morning, he's back. Dionysus walks out of the forest, barefoot, hair tangled with ivy, robes damp with dew. He nods at you and says, "Come on, there's something I want you to see." You follow him through thickets and ravines, past startled birds and streams that burble like they're gossiping. By the time the sun is high, you emerge at a clearing by the sea. A single ship is docked nearby, old, weathered, the kind that creaks even when it's sitting still. You smell trouble and wine, which in Dionysus's case is basically the same thing. He grins. "I like to test people sometimes." You sit beside him on a rock and watch as a group of sailors clamber onto the beach. They're rough-looking men, salt-bitten skin, arms like anchor chains. They spot Dionysus and immediately mutter among themselves. "That's a rich-looking stranger," says one, eyeing the god's robe, which now appears to shimmer like a waterfall of gold thread. "Bet he's got treasures. Let's offer him a ride and rob him once we're at sea." You raise an eyebrow. Dionysus smiles, sipping from a flask you didn't see him carry. Historians still argue whether this tale originated as a warning against hubris or simply as a seafarer's ghost story told to new crew members. Either way, it sticks. The sailors wave cheerfully and offer Dionysus a lift. He agrees, of course, always polite. You climb aboard behind him, unsure whether you're more nervous for him or for them. The ship casts off. The wind picks up. At first, it's normal. The crew hums sea shanties. One of them offers you a fish. You nod politely and try not to look at its eyes. Then, things shift. Ivy creeps up the mast, slowly, subtly. You notice it first, but no one else seems to. Then the ropes begin to writhe, like snakes stretching after a nap. The sail turns deep purple. The air smells overwhelmingly of fermented fruit. One of the sailors leans over to you and mutters, What kind of wine did he bring? You don't answer. You're watching Dionysus now, eyes closed, whispering something in a language the wind seems to understand.
Then the animals arrive. Not real ones, at least not at first.
The planks beneath your feet ripple. The deck blooms with fur and claw. Panther paws where barrels once were. Leopard tails curling from beneath the benches. The men panic. Screams. Someone tries to jump overboard. But the sea is now thick with vines, coiling, curling, swallowing. And then it happens. One by one, the sailors leap from the ship, splashing into the sea. But they don't sink or swim. They shimmer. Their arms elongate, their legs fuse, their skin smooths, their cries become clicks. They become dolphins. Not metaphorically, actual dolphins. Sleek, silvery, and slightly embarrassed. One of them flips in the air and squeaks at you apologetically. Dionysus stands at the bow, laughing. Not cruelly, but like someone who just watched a slapstick routine and can't help but enjoy it. You, meanwhile, are gripping the railing, whispering, "Well, that escalated." He leans over. "I only turned the ones who were rude." You glance down at the sea. The dolphins are circling the boat, occasionally diving or performing awkward twirls. You suspect one of them is trying to ask for a second chance. Dionysus sips again, offers you the flask. It tastes like sunlight filtered through crushed plum skins. You feel your toes tingle. Later, when the boat docks again, there's no sign of Ivy, no panthers, just the god, you, and a few stunned fish watching from the shallows. You step onto the sand, glance back at the ship, and catch a last glimpse of dolphin tails vanishing into the blue. You turn to Dionysus. "Do all your boat trips end like that?" He shrugs. "Only when people get grabby." It's strange, despite everything, the transformations, the magic, the barely restrained madness. He never seems cruel, just balanced, as if joy and chaos are two sides of the same wine cup, and he's just trying to keep it from spilling too hard. That night, you sleep beside a small fire. Dionysus hums beside you, carving something into the sand with a vine, a spiral maybe, or a map of somewhere you haven't been yet. The sea murmurs, the air is warm, the stars have returned to their original shapes, and far out on the water you hear the faint echoing splash of something sleek and playful, dancing just beneath the waves. You wake up to the sound of clinking cups and the faint, unmistakable gurgle of wine being poured. Dionysus is sitting cross-legged by the fire, sipping from a shallow bowl and staring at the waves like they've personally offended him. "We're going to Olympus today," he says without turning. You blink the sleep from your eyes. "You mean the actual Olympus?" He nods, setting his cup down in the sand. Time to make things official. You stretch your legs, brushing sand from your cloak. You're still not sure what counts as official when you're dealing with gods. But you've stopped asking too many questions, especially before wine. The road to Olympus isn't lined with gold. It's a jagged mountain path, steep and winding, where clouds drift low enough to wet your eyelashes. You climb for what feels like days, past ancient olive trees, forgotten shrines, and once, a sheep that stared at you a little too knowingly. By the time you reach the peak, you're breathless, and not just from the altitude. Olympus looms like a storm that decided to hold its shape. Marble colonnades rise from cloud banks. Everything smells faintly of lightning and bureaucracy. You step onto the polished stone floor and immediately feel underdressed. Dionysus, however, strolls in like he owns the place, which, technically, he soon will. The Olympians aren't thrilled to see him. Zeus lounges on his throne, trying very hard to look casual. Hera glares from her seat beside him, arms folded like she's bracing for another surprise marriage announcement. Athena polishes her spear, not looking up. Apollo strums his lyre, aggressively, off-key. You can feel the tension simmering like soup left too long on a divine stove. Zeus finally clears his throat. "We've received your petition." Dionysus smiles. "Lovely. A god being added to the Olympian roster isn't just a title change, it's a shift in cosmic balance. There are rules, hierarchies, petty rivalries older than stone. And Dionysus, with his wine-stained robes and mischievous aura, does not fit their mold. He's not born of two gods. He wandered, he danced. He turned pirates into dolphins and cities into puddles of emotion. He's unpredictable, wild, and worst of all, popular. Historians still argue whether Dionysus's elevation to Olympus was a reflection of shifting cultural values, wine and pleasure finally outpacing war and logic, or whether it was just the gods deciding it was safer to have him inside the club than throwing raves outside the gates. Either way, the decision is made. With a rumble of thunder, Zeus announces it. Dionysus shall take the 12th throne. Apollo snaps a lyre string. Hera sighs the sigh of someone who just lost an argument and knows it'll be used against her for centuries. And just like that, the god of wine, madness, and all things delightfully disordered, is officially one of the 12 Olympians. There's no coronation, no choir, no sparkly fireworks. But the air changes. You feel it, like the moment right before a toast, held breath, collective hush, and a strange, flickering hope. Dionysus turns to you and winks. Want to see the best part? You follow him past the thrones, down a hallway lined with carvings that flicker between past and future. He opens a gilded door and reveals a long room, half banquet hall, half jungle. Ivy creeps along the ceiling. A leopard naps under the table. There's music, but it seems to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. This is his space now, a place where boundaries blur. He pours 2 cups and hands you one. To survival, he says. You clink. The wine is sweet and cold with a kick of something that tastes like midnight. And then you notice something. Someone is missing. You haven't seen Semele, Dionysus's mother, since she combusted in a fireball of divine exposure. You turn to him. She didn't make it to Olympus, did she? He shakes his head. Not yet. The word hangs in the air, dense with promise. That's when you understand. His journey isn't over. He's climbed to the top of the divine ladder, yes, but he's not staying here for long. Because there's one more thing he has to do. The gods fade into background noise. The wine settles in your chest like warmth wrapped in memory. Dionysus leans back, smiling like someone who already knows the next 10 scenes. He doesn't explain. He doesn't have to. You know where you're going next. And it isn't up. It's down. You'd think Olympus would have better stairs, but no. To get to where Dionysus is going, you descend a cracked, mossy trail behind a waterfall that whispers your name in several languages. He walks ahead, unconcerned, humming a lullaby you're pretty sure hasn't been written yet. The air grows cold, damp, the kind that sticks to your lungs like cobwebs. Shadows lean closer. You follow the god of wine into the one place even most gods avoid, the underworld. Yes, that underworld. Home of Hades, population fluctuating. Decor, heavy on mist and regret. You've barely crossed the threshold when a chill creeps up your spine, part fear, part grapevine. Ivy's growing on the walls here too, reaching for the torchlight like it knows who's arrived. Dionysus isn't sneaking in. He walks like he owns the place, and weirdly, no one stops him. Even Charon, the famously cranky boatman, just nods and pushes his ferry a little closer to the shore. No coin needed, just a raised eyebrow and a silent understanding. You step aboard. The river Styx is darker than you imagined. Less water, more ink that smells of rust and forgotten letters. You pass lost souls muttering to themselves, skeletal fishermen still casting empty lines, and once a ghost dog wearing a sandal as a hat. Dionysus gives them a polite nod. Back for your mother? Charon asks without turning. Always, Dionysus replies. Historians still argue whether this part of the myth represents redemption, psychological integration, or simply the Greeks trying to work through parental issues using river metaphors. All you know is that your toes are numb and your companion is very, very serious for once. The boat lands. You step onto ash-covered stone and immediately feel the gravity of the place. Every thought you've ever buried tries to rise and stretch its arms. Dionysus doesn't falter. He strides into the court of Hades like he's here for brunch. Hades looks up from his bone and bronze throne. He is not a man who enjoys surprise visitors. Persephone sits beside him, half bored, half curious. A few shades shuffle to the corners. You again, Hades says. Dionysus bows. You knew I'd return. Everyone returns, Persephone murmurs. Dionysus doesn't ask for permission. He makes a case. Semele was killed because of divine interference, he says. She was mortal. She didn't ask for the full thunderbolt package. She asked to see, Hades replies. And she saw. But she didn't understand, Dionysus says. There's a long pause. The underworld doesn't like drama, but it does enjoy irony. And this? This is good irony. Hades stands. What would you have me do? Let her go, Dionysus says. Give her a place on Olympus. Persephone tilts her head. A mortal on Olympus. Dionysus smiles. A mother. That does it. Semele appears, not ghostly, not translucent, but whole. She looks like she's been waiting forever in a room with no clocks. Her eyes find Dionysus instantly, and her expression cracks into something you almost recognize. Pride. The ground shivers, and then just like that, Hades waves a hand. Fine. Take her, but she gets a new name. We don't let people leave unchanged. Dionysus nods. She'll be called Thyone. And so, hand in hand, mother and son leave the realm of the dead. You walk beside them, silent. The air warms with every step. Ivy blooms in their wake, even here. Somewhere behind you, the river Styx sighs. Back at the edge of the living world, Semele looks up at Olympus with eyes full of disbelief. You did all this? She asks. Just a little persuasion, Dionysus shrugs. She kisses his forehead, and for a moment he looks like the boy from Mount Nysa again. You don't speak as you return to Olympus. The gods part for them this time. Even Hera looks away. Semele, now Thyone, is given a place in the stars. And Dionysus? He goes to the kitchen. Yes, the divine kitchen. Because he wants to cook. You find him there, barefoot, dicing figs and humming to himself. You ask, was it hard? He looks up. Everything worth doing usually is. You don't say anything. You just sit and let the steam from a simmering pot carry you into a haze of wine, honey, and something like contentment. Later that night, as the others feast in the main hall, you spot a new constellation in the sky. A woman, holding a child, and below it, a trail of stars that shimmer like spilled wine. The morning after the underworld rescue feels different. Lighter, somehow. As if Olympus has taken a long breath and finally exhaled. Even the marble halls seem less stuffy today. You walk with Dionysus through a courtyard lined with laurel trees, watching a satyr chase his own tail and giggle like a toddler. No one stops him. This is Dionysus's domain now. Wild, ridiculous, and strangely welcoming. But something about him feels restless again. You ask, you saved your mother. You got your throne. Isn't that it? He smiles. Not a yes smile, but a not quite smile. I want to throw a proper party, he says. A divine one, with toasts, with stories, with weird art no one understands. You blink. You've been throwing parties non-stop since birth. Not like this, he says. This one needs a cupbearer. You tilt your head. A what now? A beautiful one, he adds. And immortal, preferably with good posture. And just like that, you're off on another adventure. You sail, of course, because Dionysus insists parties should always begin with travel. The winds are tame. The sea hums. You land somewhere high and dry. Troy, maybe, or the shadow of what it once was. There, you meet Ganymede. He's a shepherd boy, simple, graceful, and cursed with that effortless kind of beauty that usually leads to either fame or abduction. Dionysus watches him from a distance, sipping wine and muttering something about symmetry. Then, without warning, an eagle swoops from the sky, huge, golden, divine, Zeus's personal Uber service. Ganymede is lifted into the clouds before you can say, that escalated. The boy vanishes into Olympus, a shocked look frozen on his face, and a half-eaten apple still in his hand. You turn to Dionysus. You planned that? He raises an eyebrow. I made a suggestion. Historians still argue whether Ganymede's ascension to Olympus was an allegory for male beauty, a celestial explanation for the constellation Aquarius, or just Zeus being Zeus. But the fact remains, Ganymede becomes the new cupbearer of the gods. You return to Olympus to find him already installed, gliding through the banquet hall like he's been balancing goblets on silver trays his whole life. Hebe, the former cupbearer, and incidentally the goddess of eternal youth, steps aside graciously. Or at least politely. She mutters something about needing a break anyway, and goes off to teach stretching classes on Mount Parnassus. Dionysus is delighted. He throws the party he dreamed of. Golden goblets overflow. Ambrosia is served in edible bowls. A satyr recites a poem that turns halfway through into a fart joke. Artemis rolls her eyes. Ares arm wrestles a tree. Apollo sings 3 verses of an original ballad and is asked politely to stop. The gods laugh. Even Hera smirks once. You don't catch it, but you sense it. As the party stretches into the stars, Dionysus clinks his goblet with yours. To beauty, he says. To chaos. To cupbearers who don't spill. Ganymede lifts his glass with a shy smile, already glowing with immortality. Later, when the gods retreat to their chambers and the music softens into something like lullaby jazz, you sit beside Dionysus on a balcony that overlooks clouds. He's still restless. You can feel it in the way his fingers tap the rim of his cup. Happy, you ask? He shrugs. Happy is temporary, fulfilled, working on it. The wine god, it turns out, is never quite done. He tosses his empty cup into the night. It spins, glints, and becomes a star. Besides, he says, there are other stories I still want to twist. You glance at the sky, where new constellations are forming like notes on a divine music sheet. You lean back, breathing in the scent of warm stone, grapes, and candle smoke. Somewhere nearby, Ganymede laughs, and you catch Dionysus watching him, not jealously, but like a proud director whose actor nailed the final scene. And just when you think the night is over, the floor beneath your feet begins to shimmer. Dionysus grins. Let's go see how mortals are doing. You sigh, pick up your sandals, and follow. Because when the god of wine throws after parties, sleep is optional. You find yourself once again walking in sandals you're sure weren't there a moment ago, down a hill that wasn't in Olympus yesterday. The marble has vanished beneath your feet, replaced by dust, pebbles, and crushed time. Dionysus strolls beside you with the contented air of someone who just left a 5-star dinner and is now in the mood for street food. Where are we? You ask. He tilts his head. A little place where I used to lose arguments and win followers. Athens. The city is a sun-bleached puzzle of geometry and gossip. Olive trees lean over crumbling walls, cats loiter like philosophers who forgot their original points. The air smells of fish, sweat, and honeyed wine, strong wine, the kind Dionysus likes. You walk through the agora and notice something. No one recognizes him. At least, not at first. He's in disguise again, this time a humble-looking traveller in a dusty robe, carrying a jug and a bunch of grapes tucked under one arm. But there's something magnetic about him. Children wave. A woman sells him figs without charging. A philosopher on a stool mid-lecture pauses, forgets what he's saying, and applauds. You pass a street poet whose audience consists of 2 half-asleep dogs and a bored turtle. Dionysus listens for a moment, then drops a gold coin in his bowl. The man immediately bursts into tears and writes 5 verses about joy. Mortals are weird, Dionysus says cheerfully. You keep walking until the street opens into a quiet courtyard where a small shrine stands. It's a bit worn, ivy's eaten half the name, and a pigeon is roosting in the offering bowl, but you can still make out the remnants of a familiar figure carved into the stone. You were worshipped here? You ask. Am, present tense, he corrects. Then he looks at the pigeon and adds, though not by everyone. As the sun drops toward the hills, people begin to gather. First 1, then 3, then a dozen. Mostly women, a few wide-eyed boys, one man who looks like he got lost on the way to the butcher. No one says it out loud, but you can feel it, the shift in energy, the clink of hidden flasks, the breath held just before music, the sense that, under the right stars, this could all spiral gloriously out of control. And then it begins. Someone strikes a drum, a reed pipe plays, a woman pulls ivy from her cloak, and Dionysus, he just smiles and steps into the circle. The celebration is unlike anything you've seen. It's not wild, not yet. It's restrained joy, laughter with a lid on it. The wine is passed, the songs are sung. The people sway like stalks of grain in wind that hasn't yet arrived. And you, sitting beneath a fig tree, feel the way the world trembles around Dionysus. Not violently, not cruelly, but insistently. Like a hand tapping your shoulder, until you look in a direction you didn't know existed. Historians still argue whether these rites, the Dionysian mysteries, were religious ceremonies, theatrical traditions, or just socially sanctioned group therapy. What's clear is this: people came out of them changed. They shed identities, danced until dawn, saw visions, spoke in tongues. Some claim to meet the god himself. You watch now, thinking, they weren't wrong. The night deepens. The music speeds up. The wine flows like stories that can't stop once begun. And someone joins the circle. A man in a long embroidered robe, hair braided with gold thread, face painted with symbols no one taught you. His movements are fluid, between masculine and feminine, between human and divine. You lean toward Dionysus. Who's that? That's me, he says simply. You blink. The robe, the makeup, the dance, that crosses boundaries without hesitation. You do drag now? You ask, half joking. He grins. I always did. You laugh, then pause, because you realize he's right. Dionysus has never been just one thing. Not one form, one gender, one role. He's god and boy, man and mother's son, mourner and party starter. He's every contradiction wrapped in a grapevine. And the crowd, they love it. You watch as others begin to mimic him. Some throw off sandals, others shed titles, expectations, old names. It's not rebellion, it's release. No one is judging, no one is even looking, just spinning, laughing, living outside the usual boxes. You see a merchant's wife kiss the forehead of a fisherman. A former soldier quietly weep beside a fig tree. Two teenagers whisper secrets and erupt into hysterical giggles. And Dionysus? He dances. Not at the center, not demanding attention, just there, present, leading the rhythm without directing it. As the night grows thick and the stars multiply above like spilled sugar, you realize this is why he exists. Not just for wine, not even for joy, but for the space where rules pause, where masks drop, where people become whoever they are under all the pretending. The music slows. People sleep where they fall, on blankets, on each other, under the altar. A satyr snores softly into a tambourine. You and Dionysus sit again beneath the fig tree. He picks one, bites into it, and offers you the other half. Taste, he says. You do. It's ripe, warm, real. And for a long time, neither of you says a word. Morning seeps into the city like a polite guest, soft, golden, smelling faintly of bread and last night's spilled wine. The courtyard is still dotted with snoozing revelers. Someone is curled up in an amphora. A goat has wandered into the scene, chewing on a crown of ivy it definitely didn't earn. You stretch your arms, feeling your bones creak like old floorboards. Dionysus is already up, of course, perched on the ledge of a fountain, feeding grapes to a squirrel that may or may not be divine. He looks refreshed, which is deeply unfair. You ever get tired? You ask. He tosses a grape, watches the squirrel catch it mid-air. Not of this. You smile, though part of you is wondering when the next moment of chaos is going to hit. Because with Dionysus, you've learned there's always another ripple behind the stillness. Today's ripple shows up in the form of a statue, or rather a rumour of a statue. You're walking through a quiet grove just outside Athens when you hear two old men gossiping beneath a fig tree. They're talking about a sculpture of Dionysus carved so lifelike, so eerily perfect, that it was banned. Too realistic, one says, squinting into the sunlight. Too expressive, the other adds, as if that's a crime. Naturally, Dionysus is intrigued. He leads you down a forgotten path to a ruined temple. Ivy clings to the columns like it's been whispering secrets to the stone for centuries. Birds nest where worshippers once stood. But inside, amid cracked marble and faded mosaics, stands the statue. And it's haunting. Not because it's monstrous, not because it's heroic, but because it feels alive. His eyes seem to follow you. His lips curl like they're about to tell a joke. His hands, one open, one curled, offer both invitation and warning. You whisper, "That's you." He nods slowly. "That's how someone saw me, once." You reach out to touch it, but your hand stops just shy of the stone. It feels wrong to disturb it, sacred somehow, a little dangerous. "Why was it banned?" you ask. Dionysus shrugs. People like their gods either terrifying or tame, not real. Historians still debate the origin of this statue. Some say it was made by Praxiteles himself, smuggled away when the city changed regimes. Others claim it's not ancient at all, but a later invention designed to challenge ideas of divinity. You don't know. All you know is the way it makes your skin prickle. As you leave, you glance back and swear the statue winks. You do not check twice. You journey east through tiny villages where Dionysus is still honoured, not with grand temples but with cups left on doorsteps and ivy twined around bedposts. You see murals where he's dancing with animals, laughing with mortals, weeping under the stars. Sometimes he's young, and then, in a town built on goat cheese and stubborn superstition, you find something else. Another statue. Only this one has been buried. A local farmer found it while digging a well. It was quickly covered again. People said it felt wrong. Not cursed exactly, just too much. Dionysus uncovers it with bare hands. This sculpture is different. It's rougher, cruder, but there's passion in it, anger, love, something carved in haste or maybe in ecstasy. The eyes are hollow but wide, the mouth slightly open. It's raw, intimate. "Looks like someone was in love with you," you say. He doesn't answer, just brushes moss from the face. You sit beside him on a fallen pillar. "Is it strange?" you ask. "Being worshipped, misunderstood, reshaped by everyone who touches your name?" He exhales long and slow. "It's strange being a mirror. That's what I am. I reflect people, their joy, their fear, their chaos." You think of all the faces you've seen him wear. The boy on Mount Nyssa, the pirate prisoner, the wine-soaked god, the grieving son, the crowned immortal, the painted dancer, the statue, and the one sitting beside you now, barefoot in goat country, brushing lichen from a stranger's idea of him. He finally speaks. "Everyone thinks they know me, but they only know the part of me they need." "And what's the real you?" you ask. He smiles. "That's between me and my cup." You laugh. It echoes across the stones, bouncing like a tipsy bird. That night, you and Dionysus sit by a fire surrounded by ruined temples and wild herbs. The stars blink like sleepy eyes. The statue sits upright in the shadows behind you, silent, waiting, eternal. The wind shifts. Somewhere nearby, someone strikes a drum. You both glance toward the sound. Dionysus raises his eyebrows. "You hear that?" You nod. "Then we'd better go," he says. And just like that, you're walking again. You follow him toward the sound, low, rhythmic, insistent. The beat of a drum thudding like a heartbeat in the dark. The stars overhead blur, rearrange, and when they settle again, you're no longer in Greece. You're not sure where you are. The trees are different here. Thicker, closer, the air smells of cinnamon and damp earth. Somewhere nearby, a river laughs over stones. You catch glimpses of firelight through the branches and feel your own feet moving before your brain agrees to go. "Where are we now?" you whisper. "Asia Minor, maybe. Dionysus says, his voice distant. Or the edge of memory? Hard to say. You don't ask for clarification, it wouldn't help. The thudding gets louder. The ground seems to bounce in time with the rhythm. You step into a wide clearing and there they are, the Maenads. Again, but not like before. Here they move with practiced grace, half dance, half trance. Their hair is woven with ribbons, their hands are stained purple. One plays a tambourine so fast it blurs into a silver wheel. Another spins, eyes closed, vines wrapped around her arms like bracelets grown from her own skin. They don't notice you, but they feel Dionysus. You watch as he steps among them, barefoot and effortless. A garland appears around his neck, unbidden. A wine jug lands in his hand as if summoned by gravity. He lifts it and the dance intensifies. This is worship without temples. This is devotion without hymns. One Maenad shrieks, not in fear, but ecstasy, and 100 birds launch into the night sky. You feel the pulse of the ritual deep in your chest, the urge to throw off everything, to dance until your bones dissolve into dust and song. And yet, there's a stillness at the center. Dionysus doesn't shout, he doesn't command, he just is, the axis of the spiral, the storm's quiet eye. You see the others watching him, half in awe, half in hunger. Not physical hunger, the kind that gnaws when someone shows you a version of life without fear. Historians still argue what these rituals meant. Some say they were just drunken festivals. Others claim they were psychological breaks designed to liberate the soul. And a few believe they were acts of protest, rebellion against rigid order, patriarchy, and dull routines. You sit on a stone and watch. A Maenad drapes a bearskin over your shoulders. Another hands you a cup. You drink. It tastes like spice and memory. You are both lighter and heavier.
A voice beside you. This is where it started, you know. You turn. It's Dionysus. They danced before the myths, before the names, before me. They called me into being. You blink at him. You mean you weren't always real? He shrugs. They made space. I filled it. It makes a strange kind of sense. A god born from longing, from rhythm, from everything civilization tried to repress and forgot how to love. You watch one of the Maenads pour wine on the earth. It sizzles. The ground drinks. The stars above seem to flicker in approval. Suddenly, there's a shift. A figure enters the clearing, tall, robed, skeptical. He wears the look of a man who writes laws for fun and taxes poetry. A city official, maybe. Or a philosopher. Someone who believes in reason and doesn't like barefoot gods crashing his spreadsheets. He frowns. This is madness. Dionysus approaches him slowly, hands open, smile soft. No, he says. This is release. The man snorts. You corrupt the women. You infect the city. You bring disorder. Dionysus nods. I do. And you think that's a good thing? I think it's a necessary thing. The Maenads have stopped. The drum quiets. The clearing waits. Then, without a word, the man turns and walks away, stiff-backed and trembling. You know he'll tell tales. Maybe write a pamphlet. Maybe ban something. But for now, the night is yours. The dance resumes. Slower this time. More like waves than fire. You and Dionysus sit beneath a tree whose leaves hum lullabies. The Maenads sleep in curled pairs, limbs tangled like roots. The fire has gone to embers. The wine jug is empty, or maybe just resting. You ask, do they ever regret it? The ones who wake up and remember. He thinks for a long time. Some do, but most feel lighter. Like someone took a stone out of their chest. You nod. You lie back in the grass. staring up at a sky where constellations slowly rotate into the shape of a vine. The night is quiet now, but deep in your bones, the rhythm lingers. You wake to birdsong, but not the kind that belongs to forests or sleepy groves. These birds are loud, urban, mildly annoyed. You sit up and realize you're in a city again, though not one you recognize. The buildings are whitewashed, rising like layered cakes into the blue sky. Laughter echoes through narrow alleys. You smell salt, clay, olives, and, because of course, wine. Dionysus is standing at a fruit stall, negotiating the price of a pomegranate with a woman who clearly suspects he's about to charm her into giving it away for free. He wins, naturally. Roads, he tells you as he walks back. I think. You raise an eyebrow. You think? He shrugs. They move the cities around sometimes. He bites into the pomegranate. Juice runs down his chin. He doesn't wipe it off. You wander through the city with him. People nod, smile, bow slightly, not as worshippers, but as those who've heard stories and aren't entirely sure if they're true. A few whisper behind their hands. One child offers him a flower and asks if he really rode a leopard once. Twice, he says. It was bumpy. You stop in front of a small amphitheatre carved into the hillside. Workers are painting scenery and arguing over mask sizes. A young playwright in an ink-stained tunic is pacing like he's lost his script and his sanity. You recognize this scene. It's the festival of Dionysia. This, too, is his legacy. The boy, the playwright, nearly trips over your foot. Sorry, he mutters. Opening night. Dionysus raises an eyebrow. What's it about? The boy blinks. A king who goes mad. Dionysus smiles. How original. You both laugh. The boy does not. You find a spot in the shade and watch as the stage comes alive. Actors don masks with exaggerated expressions. Choruses chant. Tragedy unfolds in slow, lyrical arcs. Gods interfere. Mortals suffer. Catharsis arrives like thunder after drought. You glance at Dionysus. His eyes are glassy, but not sad. This is yours too, you say. He nods. They needed a way to bleed without blades. Historians still argue over how much of Greek theatre was literal worship and how much was just cultural expression. But sitting here, watching an actor scream into the sky as the chorus laments his fate, you understand. It's both. And it's strangely peaceful. Later, you walk past the temple attached to the theatre. It's modest, clean, cool, filled with incense and silence. Inside is a statue of Dionysus, very proper, very robed forward. It looks almost bored. He leans in and whispers to the statue, "Loosen up." You keep walking. As the day burns into golden dusk, Dionysus grows pensive. You're sitting on a stone wall overlooking the sea when he finally speaks. There's one more thing you should see. You follow him down winding alleys, through a market still closing for the night, and out into a field at the edge of the city. It's barren, dry, just dirt and a few stubborn weeds. He stands in the middle of it, barefoot as always. You ask, "What's here?" He looks around like he's searching for something lost. "This is where they burned my temples." You blink. "Why?" "New gods, new rules. They called me dangerous." You walk the field with him, sensing ghosts in the soil, not people, ideas, songs, memories. "They tried to erase you," you whisper. He shrugs. "You can't burn a vine, it just grows sideways." There's silence between you. A breeze picks up, carrying the scent of figs and firewood. Then, slowly, almost playfully, the ground begins to shift. Tiny green shoots poke through the cracked earth. Ivy winds along the stones. A lone grapevine curls up a long-abandoned altar and splits into blossom. You grin. "That's cheating." He grins back. "That's nature." The stars begin to rise. He lays back in the grass and pats the space beside him. You lie down, staring at the sky, the vineyard of constellations now fully in bloom. "Did it ever bother you?" you ask. "Being worshipped one century, banned the next?" He thinks, then says, "They don't have to remember me. They just have to remember joy. That's enough." You nod, eyes heavy. "Tell me," you say, "have you ever lost anything you couldn't regrow?"
He doesn't answer right away. Then softly, "Only time." And then nothing more. You drift off, with the smell of grapes in your nose and the sound of vines stretching under the moon.
You wake up to rain, but not the kind that ruins things. It's slow, warm, the kind that makes dust smell like history and tree leaves shine like coins. You sit up, soaked but not chilled, as if the sky itself decided to press pause. Dionysus stands under a fig tree, letting the water bead on his skin like he's made of something weatherproof. He stretches his arms, not to shield himself, but to welcome the rain. "Perfect day for a resurrection," he says. You blink. "I thought we were done with the underworld bit." He smiles. "Not mine." And then he tells you the story of Icarius. You walk together through the soggy countryside, the path a ribbon of wet stone. Hills roll out around you, dotted with olive groves and little whitewashed huts with smoke curling from their chimneys. In one of those huts, long, long ago, a man named Icarius once lived. A generous soul, a hospitable host, and as fate would have it, the first mortal ever to be given the gift of wine. Dionysus explains it like this. "I offered him a taste, just a taste, and he gave it to his friends, who loved it, who drank too much, who woke up dizzy and confused and assumed, logically, in their foggy brains, that he'd poisoned them. So they killed him, just like that. No trial, no investigation, just panic and a blunt instrument. You walk in silence for a while after that, stepping over muddy roots and puddles. A few frogs croak nearby, unimpressed. Eventually Dionysus stops by an old tree, its bark knotted like it remembers too much. He places a bunch of grapes at its base, and his daughter Erigone, he continues, voice low now. She searched for him, found his body, buried him, then hanged herself from this very tree. You swallow. "Did you punish the murderers?" you ask. He shakes his head. "I made their daughters go mad and hang themselves in the same way, so, yes." You stare at him. He shrugs. It was a different time. Historians still debate whether the myth of Icarius was meant to explain seasonal grape harvests, early hangover symptoms, or just one long warning about trusting your drinking buddies. But standing there, under a weeping sky, the story feels heavier. Dionysus seems far away now. Not sad exactly, just ancient. And then the strangest thing happens. He walks to a nearby field, kneels, places a seed in the dirt. You watch, breath held. Nothing happens at first. But then the soil stirs, a vine uncoils, leaves unfurl, grapes ripen right there, in seconds. You blink. "That's cheating," you say again, weakly. He grins. "No, that's memory." You sit beside him. The rain stops, a rainbow appears casually like it overslept. He plucks a grape, offers you one. You taste it. It's like a second chance. "Icarius is remembered," he says, "not as a victim, but as the first host." You lie back in the wet grass, letting the world blur. Above you, the clouds part just enough to let the stars peek through. One cluster looks like a goblet tipped sideways. "I made him a constellation," Dionysus says, following your gaze. "It seemed fair." You ask, "Do all your followers end up in the sky?" "Only the dramatic ones." The breeze smells like warm stone, crushed herbs, and endings. Not bad ones, just the kind that come when the story has already started looping back to the beginning. "Will anyone ever write this down?" you ask. He shrugs. "They already have, just in different names." You close your eyes. Listen to the vines curl around the rocks. The sound is slow, soft, full of secrets, and somewhere far away, a cup tips gently over, spilling just enough to remember. You're in a city, again, but it's not ancient anymore. The buildings are taller now, made of glass and steel. There's a hum beneath your feet. Not music, not drum beats, but electricity and the muffled sound of traffic. Neon lights flicker above cafes. Someone walks by with a cup of coffee the size of a wine jug. A pair of teenagers argue about something called algorithmic reach. Dionysus strolls beside you, completely unfazed. He's traded his leopard skin robe for a thrift store jacket and boots that have seen better decades. The ivy in his hair is tucked under a knit cap. But make no mistake, he hasn't changed. He's just blending in. You pass a liquor store. A street mural of grapevines spirals up the wall next to it.
The tag at the bottom says, Vino forever. You raise an eyebrow. Still worshipped, you ask? He smirks. Rebranded. He leads you down a back alley where music thumps softly through concrete walls. You descend a set of stairs lit by string lights and step into a bar. But not the raucous kind. It's dim, warm, a little dusty. Shelves of books line one wall. There's a piano in the corner, unmanned but glowing. The bartender nods at Dionysus like an old friend. You sit. He pours you something amber and aromatic. This, Dionysus says. Later, walking down a city street under a halo of street lamps, he points out the little modern altars. No one notices. A forgotten guitar case filled with coins. A mural of swirling dancers on a brick wall. A bottle of red left behind at a gravesite. People think they stop believing, he says. But belief just went underground. It wears headphones now. You pass a bookstore window and spot a cover with his face. Well, a version of it. Half lion, half young man. Titled, The God of Madness, Dionysus in the Modern World. The blurb reads, A Jungian analysis of liberation and intoxication in myth. He groans. Jung again. You grin. He meant well. You sit on a bench. A light rain begins to fall. A bus hisses by. Someone runs past, laughing under an umbrella. You're everywhere, you say. He nods. Wherever people remember how to lose control, without breaking. You watch as he pulls a grape from somewhere, his coat pocket, reality, and pops it into his mouth. You still have followers, you say. I always will. I live in the cracks, the skipped beats, the sudden confessions, the laughter during funerals. You exhale, watching your breath curl in the cold. The world rushes past, buzzing with lights and deadlines, and Dionysus just sits beside you, not trying to stop it, just reminding you to dance once in a while. The city fades, not all at once, not dramatically, just piece by piece, like fog rolling in over a memory. The lights blink slower, the street sounds grow muffled. One moment you're watching headlights glide past like silver fish, and the next, you're back on the road. Only now you realize it's the road, the one you've walked all along. It weaves between forests and temples, city ruins and rooftop bars. You see every place you've been trailing behind you in overlapping footsteps. The path isn't straight. Dionysus never moves in a line, but it loops, always loops. You're walking beside him. Still, he hasn't aged a day, then again neither have you, not in the ways that count. Ahead is the horizon, pink sky, blue hills, somewhere between night and dawn. The world hums like a wineglass touched just so. I think, he says, this is where you stop. You pause. Is this where you stop? He tilts his head. I don't stop, I linger. Big difference. You step off the road onto a small overlook. Below, a valley stretches out, speckled with villages, vineyards, bonfires, and the kind of laughter you can almost hear even from this high up. The stars above mirror the lights below, like the sky is tipsy and trying to copy the earth. This is your legacy, you ask? He chuckles. No, that's theirs. You look again. The people, the music, the breaking of bread, the pouring of wine, the hand on the shoulder at just the right time. It's not grand, not carved in marble, but it's real. Will they remember you, you ask? They already do, he says, pointing to a group of people dancing barefoot in the dust, one of them wearing ivy, another laughing so hard they fall over. They don't know the name, but they know the feeling. You sit on a smooth rock and watch as the firelight flickers against the grapevines. Dionysus sits beside you. He doesn't speak. He doesn't have to. He's here, in the rustle of leaves, in the pause between the first laugh and the second, in the moment when someone lets themselves feel, without apology. You ask, what happens now? He shrugs. You rest? I keep walking? Maybe one day you'll dance again. You close your eyes. The air is sweet, thick with the scent of soil and ripening fruit. Somewhere nearby, a flute begins to play, a lazy melody that loops like a question without an answer. And just like that, he's gone. Or maybe he never was. You feel a cup in your hand. It's full. You don't drink it. You just breathe. And now, as the story settles like silt at the bottom of a quiet stream, you find yourself leaning back into the soft hush of sleep. The world of Dionysus, the thrum of drums, the scent of wine, the shimmer of ivy, fades gently into stillness. No more dancing tonight, no flickering torches, just the soft, comforting rhythm of your breath, in and out, like the tide retreating, like footsteps growing distant. You're lying beneath a canopy of stars. They don't ask anything of you, they just shine. The night air cools against your skin, and the grass beneath you cradles every part of your body without asking you to move or to explain. There is nothing left to chase, no story left to follow. Just the knowledge that everything wild, beautiful, and chaotic can still lead home. The god of wine, of theatre, of joyful madness, he's not lost. He's in the swirl of dreams now, and maybe, just maybe, he'll visit you again. When the music returns, when laughter bubbles up from somewhere deep, when you dance without thinking, so close your eyes. Let your muscles soften. Let your thoughts dissolve like sugar in warm tea. There is nowhere to be but here. No task to complete, no mask to wear, only breath, stillness, peace. Sleep well, traveller of myths. The party can wait.